The time at 8:54. It's the weekly edition with eThekwini Secure. Imtiaz Syed, Chairperson of eThekwini Secure, standing by. Imtiaz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Inayat.
Yes, there's so much happening in Joburg. In fact, I'm not too sure whether in your part of the world, but there's never a dull moment. And now we've got gas explosions in the CBD. And, I tell you what, uh, this place is like a war zone, actually. And I'm sure you've seen
Yeah.
some of the video footage as well. And
Yes,
this is what's happening. But your part of the world, obviously, Durban, a lot more warmer. It's lovely winters that you enjoy, Ian. I'm just looking at you. You're not even wearing a jersey, and while we freeze here. But that's not what we
absolutely.
want to talk about. We don't want to talk about the weather. We don't want to talk about explosions. We want to talk about youth this morning, Imtiaz. And for a long time, I think we have addressed this issue in the past as well, looking at youth, where they are at this point in time, how do they see themselves, how do they fit into broader society, what are the interests. And there's just so much that we can actually talk about young people, and also in terms of their lack of involvement, I would say, in structures, in initiatives that really matter. And all of that impacting on them in some way or the other.
Absolutely. I think, Inayat, when we're speaking to activism in its generality, you'd find that it's generally people that are 45 years old and older that are getting involved in these things, whether it's your community ratepayers association or your civic bodies or politics or whatever it is. And based on that, I think the need for those 45-year olds to do that is because if you look at the trajectory of them, the time that they were brought up, we were sitting in sort of a dull zone of the changeover into democracy. And now we find, as 45, 48-year-olds, that there was a great gap in ourselves to say that we were not involved in these things before, and therefore we find ourselves falling by the wayside as we move forward. And I think we really need to sensitize our youth to that effect, because currently our youth that are aged around about 20, 25 have parents that are sitting in the age bracket of about 40, 45, and they are not politically astute, nor have they come from the struggle per se, like the 60-year-olds today that actually face the cold front of the struggle. So the parents of today are actually not or were not really involved in the battles of communities and things like that. And therefore, the children that are coming out, which are now 20 to 25 years old, are not well versed or versed at all in society and how community should be working and all of those things. And I think it's important for us as society to start bringing them to the fore, for us to educate them that it's very important for you to start becoming active in your community, start giving time and space, whether it's your CPF structure, whether it's your local animal care foundation, whether it's your school body, whether it's youth development, whether it's getting involved in creches and schools about education. But it's all of these little things that build society in its true form. And if our youth today are not getting involved, then when they reach 40 and 45 years old, where would they be and how involved would they be? And how do they then start then, if you know what I mean?
Yes, because that actually explains a lot in terms of what you are saying. And when one looks at the parenting that takes place, and a lot actually begins there, and possibly this is the reason as to why we can't get through to the youth, because interests have changed, and also looking at parents these days as well.
Mm.
As much as young people are engrossed in technology, social media, all of that, that they are being exposed to. But it's not that some of the issues that we are talking about, they're not aware of, because there's so
Correct.
much in the media at this point in time. They are aware, they are exposed. But again, is it just a question of just ignoring what they're seeing on social media, or would that generate some sort of interest in these matters that you speak about?
I think, Inayat, when you speak to it, our youth have been kept in their cocoons, and they, as much as they in the peripheral vision are aware of what's going on in society in generality, but they are not really facing it or seeing it. and it's important for them to go out and face it and see it daily, what is going on, what are the plight of the people, especially the majority of our country, because we are going in that direction. It's important for us to build that cohesive nature and of understanding. I'm not saying that everyone should just give away things and do all of that, but I'm saying at least have an understanding of what the plight of the majority are, and how do we now start building a nation whereby there is no racial tensions and all of those things that we currently see daily. Yes, it's an undertone, but it exists. It exists, and we shouldn't deny it. I mean, right now, I push my elder son, Yunus, who's now 23 years old, and we've pushed him forward, obviously, and he's now the youth desk chairperson of the district. And he comes and he tells me, Dad, if if you didn't do this to me, I wouldn't have known that in 42 stations across eThekwini, the real plight of people sitting in Inanda and Kwamasho and Amlazi, and really what are their emotions on the ground and what are they feeling. And now that I'm in that space, or he's in that space, he realizes that there's much more that needs to be done with the youth, and the youth as a collective, not racially based, not affluency based, but as the collective. What is youth doing? How do they move forward? So we're seeing that there's a trajectory of youth in a particular grouping, and that's the majority, that are really moving in a very economic transformation kind of sphere, and are very vociferous about their needs and all of that. Whereas on the other side, in the minority sector, you find our youth sitting complacently at home and dependent on parents, and okay, we're going to get educated. Tomorrow, where are those jobs going to be? Currently, right now, you're seeing employment equity all over the country. There's no jobs going to be there for the minorities if we're not getting involved. And this is the importance of us being involved in every facet of society, but together as one nation.
But also, just a thought while we were talking, and I think one thing that we're missing, and I think you and I, when we grew up in a community where there was a sense of community spirit, there was a sense of togetherness. We went to schools, whether we went to our madrasas or
Yes,
people may have gone to, Hindu schools or Gujarati schools or whatever it is. There was a
yes,
sense of community togetherness. That spirit was there. Everybody knew everyone else in the community. And what we've
yes,
seen is a lot has also changed with regard to that. We don't have that anymore. We've seen, parents possibly still staying in the traditional areas. Children have basically moved out other
correct.
areas, and where they don't have this community spirit or this community togetherness, where some in areas where people don't even know who their neighbors are. They move
No,
into complexes, gated complexes, wherever it is at the end of the day. So all of that has also changed, and I'm sure that is also a contributing factor.
no, absolutely. Inayat, just to speak about, and then you touch on something that's very dear to me. I grew up on Brickfield Road, and we were one of the houses that one of the only houses that existed on that road, because of my grandparents and whatever. But generally, after school, we grew up on the streets with 10 of my friends, and those friends of mine are still very close to us. And what you'd see is that we all grow up in the same way. We build ourselves according to each other, and we build each other up. And that's very important, because back then we never ever discriminated based on affluency. If one had, we shared with each other. Currently, what we see is that friends tend to associate with friends who have just as much as them. And this is something that's really, really, really destroying society, because then we build that divide. We build the haves and the have nots. And that's something that we really need to look at. We need to rebuild, I mean, in the environment. And as much as we as parents can sit and complain that our kids are sitting and playing on their cell phones, and playing games on their PCs and that kind of thing, what have we done as parents to create environments where that sense of cohesion can be there? One good thing that has happened is that the AstroTurf and soccer has come about, where many youth tend to join each other socially based on soccer and sports, which is fine. But where are they in terms of saying that we have a place to go to? It's a social club. It's just for us. Yes, it's a clean space to be. All of those things. So we need to start building those things. But we also need to start teaching our youth that they should not be discriminating. Discrimination based on affluence is very rife in communities. There is that divide that's coming up, where there's the haves and the have-nots. So if a child has a car, he tend not to want to associate with another child, and these are the kinds of things that are happening in society, which generally builds that divide. So it's important that our children start associating with everybody. And it was very important thing for me back then when I was putting my kids into school in grade 1 and grade 2. I ensured that they went to public school through their grade 1 right up till grade 8. And when it came to high school, yes, then they needed to get groomed differently. So that mix of friends and that mix of understanding is important. We need to put them in that front line so that they're at the cold front of it and they see what's happening. They understand the plights of different individuals. They understand the plights of parents that go to work Monday to Friday, come home and just want to rest. They understand those kids' plights and their problems that they have, and all of these things. So really, it's time for us to start spending not money, but spending time with our youth and educating them to say that this is what you really need to start learning, especially if you want to live in South Africa as a country, and if you want to move forward in this country, you're going to have to be socially cohesive.
Well, Imtiaz, Jazakallah for that. As always, an absolute pleasure talking with you. And I know you're on your way to work. Have a safe trip, inshallah, and looking forward to next week once again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imtiaz Syed, Chairperson of eThekwini, secures us this morning, and we're heading straight for the news. Syed, Jedward standing by.